I'm Travis Weaver, and you're listening to the Good People Project.
Do it?
Sure.
Let's jump in. The wise and talented John Morris. Good to be with you here today.
Thank you, Travis.
We just did a tour of the museum. There's a lot of great things that we can get to. Of course, John, you're the head of the museum down here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum. But at the same time, you're just a kid from Richwoods who's stewarding $100 million in gifts to the museum. You got to just wake up and pinch yourself, I think, at that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great privilege here. You know, I'm of Peoria, born and raised here. First museum director for this or our predecessor institution, Lakeview Museum, from Peoria. So I'm coming up on 9 years in 2026, and what a wonderful opportunity for us to sort of lead the nation in the celebration of America's 250th.
So I didn't know this. You just told me that this is the successor to the Lakeview Museum.
Oh, exactly.
I went to kindergarten at the Lakeview Museum.
Well, you're part of the family from day one.
I preschool. We do the planetarium.
Yes,
and I remember, one day they made it rain in the planetarium, and all the kids started crying.
Oh no!
Well, I didn't put that together. It makes total sense that where one ends, the other.
We no
picks
longer have a preschool, but the old Lakeview Museum of Arts and Sciences, our predecessor institution, was founded in 1965. Initially as a community center, the Lakeview Center of Arts and Sciences. And that differentiates us from a lot of other museums. I was with the former chairman and CEO of Caterpillar, Jim Owens, who does not live in Peoria any longer, but he serves on my president's advisory council here. And between Glenn Barton, Jim Owens, and Doug Oberhelm and those three CAT chairs, and Sid Banwart really is a continuum, and there are many other great CAT leaders, but they were they formed the backbone of what became the Peoria Riverfront Museum. Interestingly, in 1965, a guy named Murray Baker, a Caterpillar executive, who's the name of our interstate bridge, was a CAT leader who helped founded Lakeview Museum Center at that time with the Heydrichs and Sally Page and so forth. So we're very fortunate to have this unique museum in the country.
So Murray Baker, a little known fact, is who my grandfather bought our farm from out there by Grand Prairie.
I did not know that. That's fascinating.
It's not every day I get to teach you something.
No, well,
history.
You can teach me a lot, Travis. Everybody can.
So I got to imagine this is a really cool experience for you, but it's not the first one. So in looking you up, I found president of George Washington University Student Association.
I was.
Pretty sweet.
That goes
White House intern.
I interned at the Reagan
Pretty
White
amazing.
House,
8-year member of the Peoria City Council. I knew, but didn't know that you were mayor pro temp for a period of time.
I was to Mayor Ransburg.
And then founding director of Ronald Reagan Society at Eureka. I mean, the history that I'm sure we can unpack just in those 4 topics. Well, I didn't even mention hedgehog owner.
Yeah,
but,
my wife claims that. So yeah.
Well, but when you think about that background, it's hard to imagine anybody who could be better situated to head a museum for America's 250. I mean, that's really rich history that you bring to this experience.
Well, thank you. And, we stand on such historic ground. I'm born and raised in Peoria, and sometimes you take for granted what's right in front of you. But earlier we were touring the Promise of Liberty exhibition up all year at 2026 in the galleries here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and there on a mid 18th century map of 1718, there is the name Peoria on the map. So we have been on the map prior to most East Coast communities even existing. And it makes me very proud to think about the pivotal moments, not in the community's history, in American history, that this community can claim, not the least of which, in fact, probably the greatest of which, was Lincoln coming here to Peoria in 1854 to make his pivotal moment of his life, his anti-slavery speech.
So we're enjoying America's 250. We're getting into it. Riverfront Museum, huge piece of that. There's some amazing things you're doing. Every kid in Illinois gets to come here for free for the year while it's open. Some really legendary things here. We're just touring multi-million-dollar documents and multi-million-dollar artifacts, all here in the Peoria Museum. I don't know how you pick one of your favorites, but if you said like this 3 or 4 things that just blew your mind when you found out that we were going to have them as part of this exhibit, what would be
I think the reason for the season, so to speak, is the Declaration of Independence. The Continental Congress voted on July 2nd, Travis, to separate from England. And John Adams said this date will be remembered in all of history as the birth of a new nation.
At least 2 days later would be.
And The press release, the most famous press release in history, was the words of Thomas Jefferson in the Committee of Five, was dated 2 days later, July 4th. And it's the press release we celebrate with fireworks and the remembrance of the Declaration. But to have the 1776 printing, it's a Massachusetts, only 4-column Massachusetts printing of the Declaration that had never been on display at an institution like ours. That starts the party. And then as you go through the galleries, pretty darn cool that Jerry Shaheen, retired Caterpillar executive from Elmwood originally with his twin brother, they serve, Jerry serves on the board of Colonial Williamsburg. So the first object we acquired for this exhibition is a Gilbert Stuart portrait of George Washington, the dollar bill portrait of George Washington, up in the galleries on loan, one of the most famous works on loan from Colonial Williamsburg. And then the exhibition ends as you go through in the Emancipation Proclamation, and you see the Constitution, you see the only signed Four Freedoms speech by FDR. But the real beautiful ending of this is Martin Luther King Jr., 1963, March on Washington speech. We have the original mimeograph from 63, the so-called I Have a Dream speech, in which, as you and I were speaking earlier, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. really restates the Declaration. Doesn't try to overturn it. Doesn't say our Declaration, our Constitution needs to be rewritten. He says, no, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created. You can hear King's words. He calls it a promissory note. And that promissory note is still offered to everybody who comes here, who's born here, who is a part of the United States dream, and frankly, philosophically, to people around the world who strive for free society. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the mission statement of the United States. And you see it throughout this whole Promise of Liberty exhibition, which I have to say, typically I'm a bit of a hype master. I like to pump up. I don't describe Peoria as a city. I describe it as the greatest city and the greatest nation in the world. Yep. It's just the way that I am, although I only speak facts about the greatness of Peoria in America. But what's pretty cool is I have underpromised on this exhibition. The promise
that doesn't happen a lot.
No, it does not. But I walk through. I can't even. I mean, the stuff you and I were coming across today. It's amazing. So people are coming. The school children are going to get a chance to see these documents of liberty right here in their own backyard.
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit, but just the honest history of America, right? I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, you don't back away from things that are blemishes in our past.
We're broken,
it's just there.
Like all of humankind. We have the pursuit.
That's right.
The pursuit, and that is evident as we look at. I mean, the founding fathers were not delusional. They knew that in a country in which enslaved people were allowed to remain enslaved despite a revolution for individual liberty, they knew that there was a giant hypocrisy in that.
Yeah.
But they were men of their time. And it's so hard for us to realize how the future may judge us harshly on something we're doing today, but we are people of our time. And nowhere in all of human history had a group of people set out to create a society in which endowed inherent liberties given to us by our Creator allowed for, philosophically, us to govern ourselves. So we were not a government who had people to rule over. We were people who delegated to government limited powers.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest revolution is in the ideas. Filmmaker Ken Burns just did a 12-part documentary on PBS that a lot of people have watched. Some people have debated parts of that documentary, but one thing he I think states is so right on the money is this is the biggest revolution of human thinking since the birth of Christ, and really comes out of the Enlightenment, comes out of a spiritual context, which is really profound, that America Today, we're not debating, with all the politics of the world today, we're not debating whether or not we have these inherent liberties.
Yeah, we're not debating the Constitution. We're not debating how to leverage it.
We're debating within the framework of the Constitution. But so if the Declaration of Independence is the mission statement of America, the Constitution is the operating system. It's the technology by which we have been able to govern ourselves without, through a civil war, through the Great Depression, through world wars, through constant and difficult times. If you have a free society, Travis, you're going to have debate. You're going to have consternation. You're going to have conflict. That freedom allows for conflict, therefore it's going to exist. So I think in some ways, the dream of like an America in which nobody's ever arguing with each other is a dream about an America that has ceased to exist. A dream about a country that adheres to tactically deciding how we hold these truths to be self-evident, how we continue to get to the promise of liberty. More government, less government.
Yep.
More regulation, less regulation. These tactical issues, I think, I'm an amateur historian who runs art science.
I think at this point you might be a little more than an amateur.
I'm passionate about it, but we really, seeing what's in the galleries upstairs to me is just a reminder of how brilliant and ingenious and inspired the framers of our mission and our Constitution as an operating system were. So anyway, thank you for your interest in it. And
so just to my one time through, obviously there's some amazing revolutionary things, but a couple small things that stuck with me. One, a stamp from the Stamp Act. I mean, you hear about it and then you're like, that is a stamp right there.
Never seen one.
The second one, you have a print, a mold of George Washington's face, which is like you see paintings of him, but to see actually this is what he looked like, this is a mold of his face, pretty remarkable. And then the third thing that stuck with me is, it sort of builds on this point of MLK saying it's a promissory note, but there's this response from Washington from a group of Jewish people that wrote him basically saying, are we free too? And I think people think about, well, they were just the Protestants and these upper crust white male, and they just really wanted freedom for themselves. But his response to this group of Jewish people is no bigotry.
Right.
No bigotry for everybody.
For bigotry, there is no sanction.
Yeah.
And that was a letter both to the Jewish congregation in Providence, Rhode Island, but it was also a letter to everyone of any kind of practicing faith that America was a place of freedom. And that also was unique. Certainly the people who founded the country were almost entirely people of religious faith. But the country itself allowed for people to practice their religion according to their values. And seeing the first printing of that letter of George Washington's for bigotry, no sanctions, amazing. Yeah. I should mention Seth Kaller is the leading documents dealer in the United States. You can go online and see his website. He's got every document if you ever want to get in the business of trying to acquire something from 1778, first printing of something.
I'll let you do the acquiring. I'll just do the watching.
Seth figures out how to get it. But he's also the expert on the Declaration of Independence, the document of the Declaration. He knows where every single printing is, who owns it, what institutions have it. He can tell you. He can look at a printing of the Declaration and tell you whether it was a first printing or second printing. And so we've been very fortunate through a mutual friend of ours named Mark Shankman, who is a high-yield bond manager in New York and a friend of mine from the George Washington University for years ago. Mark Shankman is a collector of documents, and Seth Kaller's been his advisor and dealer, if you will, for years. And so it was through Mark Shankman that Seth Kaller and I really got to know each other. And Seth has dreamt about bringing the entire portfolio of these liberty-related documents together in one place, and here it is in Peoria.
Well, so when we were walking down here, you told me about FBO, and this is FBO, but tell the people what FBO is.
Well, here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, we aspire to do things that are first, best, or only, FBO. So I like to go around town telling people it's no secret. I'll share it with anybody. Sportscasters are the best at this. You will be watching a game and they said, this is the first time a left-handed relief pitcher has ever, been rained out when he was the seventh at bat. I mean, they'll come up with why it's the first or the best time, the longest home run ever in the National League in the first half of the season. So we human beings love first, best, or only. We love to be a part of it. And so at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, we don't do anything that isn't first, best, or only. When people say, well, how do you do that with something like Body Worlds, this exhibition, the science exhibition we brought a couple of years ago of plastinated bodies, incredible, from medical school to the galleries and museums. It's been around for about 25 years. The most popular science museum in the history of museums. Science exhibition, history of museums. Well, we paired it with an exhibition on the human heart curated by our chief curator, Bill Conger. We're the first museum ever to pair it with a locally curated heart exhibition.
Yeah,
so
I love
you
that.
get the point.
It makes it, this is a special place. And you and I know that, but anybody that comes to this area needs to know that whatever's happening here at the Riverfront Museum, and there's going to be a next exhibit that comes, and it will be the first, best, or only.
It'll be the first, best,
and that's special.
Yeah. And I recommend that we as Peoria have so many ways we do that. In fact, we see it, in our community all the time. Caterpillar is still the largest private for-profit employer in our town. Caterpillar doesn't say, we're one of the best heavy equipment manufacturers. Yeah. We are the greatest, largest, manufacturers. And so whenever you hear one of, be careful and recategorize to say, okay, we are the best in this category, not one of the best in the others.
Yeah.
It's so hard for people because they don't want to have the confidence to say we can be.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, this is the only museum of art, science, history, and achievement in the nation. Therefore, the best.
Yeah.
We are also,
I love it.
I mentioned Jim Owens, seeing him last week at a National Associates event we did in Naples, which we have so many supporters all over the country now. We have something called the National Associates of the Peoria Riverfront Museum. Anyway, Jim spoke there, and he was one of the key players in helping get this thing off the ground. And he wrote me afterwards. He said, John, keep up the good leadership at the best community museum in America. Not one of, and qualifying it as a community museum.
Yeah.
And my goodness, have we become a community museum.
Yeah.
The Christmas in the Village that Allison Unkovich got off the ground.
Yeah.
The 4th of July, fireworks that Peoria already leads. We do a great event every year around that. 250 different events at the museum every year with different organizations. In fact, we were talking about your mom's charitable efforts today, and we're proud to host them on an annual basis. So we are really the community's living room, and we're also the front door. So when people come in, imagine the impression they get coming to Peoria and seeing the greatest documents exhibition in America 250. So
I love it. So in each of my episodes for the last several, I've been doing one and only segments. So this is the only segment
only first best
You've
or only.
inspired me. And this segment I call "Is John Morris Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?"
Probably not.
I'm going to give you points here because these are tougher than fifth grader questions.
Okay, all right.
I think for you they'll be fifth grade.
I'll do my
easy.
best.
Okay. The opening part of the Constitution is called what? And what are the first three words?
We the people.
I love it. It's right upstairs.
Yeah, and it's upstairs. And we have the first printing in the... So it's interesting. People come in and they believe we'll have the beautiful We the People engraved. What we have is the first printing of those words right out of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. It's spectacular.
Yeah,
you're seeing it the way people who lived at the time would have seen this new idea. And there was plenty of skepticism. Like, what is this? Is this going to give too much power to the federal government? Because at that time, under the Articles of Confederation, there was very loose confederation. The states had the power. So, but anyway, so I'm glad I answered the first one correctly. We the people.
You're nailing it. Okay, this one should be no problem. Who is the loser of the 1984 election, and how many states did the loser win?
Well, you know the answer to that. The winner was Ronald Wilson Reagan, who was elected with 49 to 50 electoral college 49 to 50 states electoral college.
Yeah.
The only state to not go over was Minnesota, and that's because former Vice President for Carter, Walter Mondale, was from Minnesota. Now, just as a bit of trivia for you, a good friend of mine.
I asked the questions here, John.
A bit of trivia. Ed Rollins was the chairman of that campaign, and Ed became a friend of mine. And Ed said I could have gotten my mother. My mother could have run Reagan's candidacy in '84, but President Reagan purposefully told Rollins, "Don't spend any campaign money in Minnesota." So they spent like $20,000 in the whole state there. He said, it's Walter Mondale's home state. Just leave it.
Gentlemen.
So Rollins believes, had they
because it was close, right? Even Minnesota
fairly close. Close. Had they really ramped it up, Reagan could have been the only president to win every electoral college. He also lost D.C., but it's not one of the 50 states, though.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's going to be a no-brainer. Who was the star of the 1940 film Newt Rockney All-American? I don't think any fifth graders know that.
No, they probably don't. Ronald Reagan.
And that's his kind of his top role.
Probably. I'm not sure it was his best role. There's a film.
ChatGPT said this was his top role. It gave me like three answers.
And ChatGPT is right that is certainly his most famous role because when he was running, win one for the Gipper. They would talk about it. He made 52 films in Hollywood.
Oh wow!
7 terms. The president of the Screen Actors Guild, the only union president to be elected president of the United States, is Ronald Reagan. He was Screen Actors Guild SAG president 7 terms. They were 1-year terms, but he was succeeded by Charlton Heston, actually as president of the Screen Actors Guild. So he learned a lot of negotiating skills on behalf of the union. In fact, little trivia: to this day, Travis, when an actor makes a movie, they can negotiate in the contract to get a percentage of the revenue of the movie. That did not exist prior to Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
He negotiated that clause, and it stays with actors to this day. Because at that point, they said, you're going to be paid this amount of money. You want to do the movie or not? And the makers of the movie, if it made it in today's dollars, made $1 billion, these big mega, and, so that Reagan... When Ronald Reagan then ran for office as governor and then later president, he saw the taxpayers as kind of his union, trying to represent and negotiate on their behalf to make sure that they got the best deal. And it's kind of, that was his psychology.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating because you think about, how does a movie star have the background for Reaganomics, right? I mean, this amazing economic dream that gets America back up off of the Carter administration. How does a movie star have the backbone to go toe-to-toe with Gorbachev, right, and deal with that whole situation?
Unions.
Really, when he
was at the table with the big producers, he knew he figured out how to walk away from the table. He walked away at Reykjavik, where in Iceland, where they had, Gorbachev wanted him to get rid of SDI, and Reagan believed SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, which we see today in the Iron Dome and some other defense technologies, which ultimately did materialize to be able to protect from rogue missile attacks and so forth.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's more than you.
Well,
sorry, this is...
No, it's a great tangent because it's such a great reminder that we know so little about what we're being prepared for in life and the experiences that we go through and what they're going to prepare. So when you're president of the George Washington University Student Association, I'm sure you learn great things there that you're still using today as you prepare for this beautiful exhibit upstairs, but you weren't doing it at that time for John Morris in 2026, but everything that comes into our life is training us.
You know this.
Okay. So we've tested your American history. We've tested your Reagan history. Got to test your Peoria history. Okay, this Grammy nominee had multiple platinum albums and is most famous for songs like Same Old Lang Syne, leader of the band Longer.
Well, and we have an exhibition about him coming up this year.
Of course you do.
Dan Fogelberg. His father was a band leader, so that song was about... Fogelberg's story is amazing. Little trivia, in South Pekin, Illinois, there was a recording studio called Golden Voice.
Okay.
Started by a couple who are still alive today, live in Pekin, named Jerry and Marianne Milam.
Okay.
And they set up this recording studio, and they recorded Fogelberg's albums there. They also recorded REO Speedwagon and Head East and a whole lot of church albums and
South Pekin's in my legislative
South Pekin, and it's been converted into a private home now. It's just a cinder block, sort of rectangular building that you've probably driven by and didn't even know that some of the most important albums of the 1980s were recorded right here at the Golden Voice. And upstairs, outside the giant screen theater at the museum, all of the vinyls that they recorded are up on the wall, or many of them, not all, but many of them. There are probably more than 150 vinyls on the wall.
Wow. So, John, it's been a pleasure. Before I let you sign off, what do folks need to know about the museum? How can they get here? What's the
most important thing to know about the museum is our mission, which is to unleash the full talent and genius of every individual. We're not an object-focused museum, although we've got one of the greatest amethysts and a great planetarium and great artifacts and documents. We're a people-focused museum. So if you want your child or grandchild or yourself or your friend to kind of have a place that can lift you up, can help unlock the talent that is God-given, that's in you, then come to the Peoria Riverfront Museum, because we're going to have something that connects, something that sparks your talent and helps you go and serve and lead in the world. And so Peoria Riverfront Museum is open 6 days a week, closed on Mondays, but the second Sundays, thanks to a great patron, Alice Walton of Bentonville, Arkansas, we're open for free every second Sunday. So if you want to just give us a try, come in. We have activities. We have a lot of fun, and we have Travis Weaver here today, recording me on these things. And I'm grateful for your friendship and for you being here, and thanks for doing what you do.
I appreciate you, man. You're so great for our community. You're the top cheerleader. I always say, who's your Mr. Peoria? Because it's either you or JD D'Alfonso or Marcelo Summer. I mean, there's like 5 people that you say that guy loves Peoria.
Listen, there are a lot of us, and if we all work together, this town will be known the way it should be, which is the greatest part of the greatest country.
Not one of the greatest.
The greatest.
Yeah, the best.
The best.
I love it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
John. I appreciate it.
I'm Travis Weaver, and you're listening to the Good People Project.